It is your lifestyle is K, and welcome back to another video. I wanted to dive into identifying toxic dynamics and how you can break free from that. I really want to dive into this because I think a lot of times we stay in situations a little too long, and we want to make sure that we can recognize these signs and not give into the toxicity for too long. Now, have you ever felt drained, confused, or even doubting yourself after dealing with someone, whether that is a relationship, friendship, or family relationship? That might not be normal conflict. That might be a toxic dynamic. Now, if you've personally ever felt that something was off, but couldn't quite put your finger on it, trust me, you're not crazy. Let's dive in.
Day in, day out, pleading strangers for help. Don't dwell upon this thought right now.
Now, we always don't really recognize when we're being manipulated, but manipulation is one of those toxic traits that you can find yourself second guessing. Like, am I being manipulated? That's why I said, have you ever felt yourself feeling drained or confused or doubting yourself? When you have those feelings, you possibly could be manipulated. And manipulation is one of those things that toxic people use to gaslight you, to guilt trip you, or to love bomb you. And that's why I say it can be in any type of dynamic, relationship dynamic, friendship dynamic, and a family dynamic. Toxic people just don't exist in relationships as a boyfriend, husband, and wife, or whatever, girlfriend, boy. They're also in friendships and family relationships. Manipulation is normally used to control a person, right? So when it comes to gaslighting is used to make you feel like what you're saying isn't true, to make you doubt yourself, and to make you doubt your reality, what you know to be true, what you've seen, right? And then you have the guilt tripping, right? To where it's making you feel guilty for setting boundaries. So we call that guilt tripping or guilt obligation, right? When they make you feel selfish for setting those boundaries, when in reality, those boundaries are used to protect you from being guilt tripped. So we have to make sure that when we notice these things, we don't always have to say something right away, but you have to definitely keep them in mind that this is possibly happening. And then you have love bombing and future faking. So many people have experienced this that it's almost like it's normal. And I hate this for us all. I hate that there's just so many toxic people, but that's why we're here, to live and to learn and to do better and to make better decisions, especially when it comes to who we decide to have in our life. So, love bombing and future faking. And so, this is intense affection or even big promises early on in a relationship, right? Which causes you to feel a sense of security within the relationship instantly because you're like, oh my God, I've never experienced this before. And then all of a sudden, they suddenly withdraw, right? And so at first, you're like, ooh, is it me? What did I do? You begin to blame yourself. But you have to understand that these are traits of a manipulative person. No, it's probably not you. It's them just love bombing you or future faking you. And we have to be aware of that. Stop always blaming yourself for the things that you experience in a relationship and analyze them. Have some intersection to actually see, like, okay, is this me or is this them or am I tripping? You want to take that step back and really analyze. And sometimes you can have a conversation with a person, but then that will just cause you to feel more confused, more drained, and additional doubt within yourself. And if that doubt, confusion, or draining feeling does not leave you, then I would suggest maybe walking away. Just remember that healthy relationships do not make you feel confused or small. So if someone is consistently making you second guess yourself, that's more or less a red flag. And so let's dive into the toxic relationship pattern. Toxic relationships follow a predictable pattern, right? First comes the honeymoon phase, the idolization, making you feel over the moon, irreplaceable, right? It's making you feel like this person worships the ground I walk on. And then you enter into a devaluation phase, right? Which includes subtle criticisms, emotional withdrawal, and making you feel like you're not enough. And when you internalize that, that breaks your confidence. That breaks you down in a way that is so toxic and so detrimental that you become less of who you are, right? Because if someone can shift how you feel about yourself, they can control you. And then you have the discard and return, that ping pong type of dynamic, which you're being ignored, you're being ghosted, and then suddenly they return as if nothing happened. It's the craziest feeling and the craziest dynamic, but usually, if you've ever been in that dynamic, no matter friendship, family, relationship, you're like, oh, they're back. And then you start to feel that feeling again, not realizing that this person just like ignored me, stopped talking to me for I don't know how long. And then they just show up and I'm feeling okay about it. Of course, I have my doubts in the back of my mind, but I'm feeling okay because now I have those feelings again. I'm being love bombed again. You're getting all of these googly eyes about the situation again because you're like, okay, we're back. But I think this is why a lot of times women, people stay in these dynamics. Why? Like, why are we staying? The reason we stay is that we're holding on to the good times. That memory is a son of a something, right? So we're holding on to those good times and we're hoping that things will go back the way they were, right? So when you hold on to that, it allows you to easily ignore a lot of the things that have happened or that has transpired that has caused you to feel less than who you know yourself to be. But I want you to understand that real love, true love does not come in the cycles of punishment and reward. Punishment and reward. And when you find yourself in that dynamic, you have to nip it in the. I'm going to keep saying this probably throughout the whole video. You have to stop it as soon as you notice it. No matter how much it hurts you, remember that you're saving yourself. Now let's tap into the red flags versus intuition. Because if you know, like I know, when you have those feelings and you're like, well, am I just tripping? Is this a red flag? Is this my internal self telling me to pump the brakes? Or am I just overly thinking this thing? One thing to always remember, like I stated earlier, when there's confusion, there's a problem, right? When there's no clarity in a thing, there's an issue. It's outside of yourself. And so the dynamic of red flags is that number one, you always feel like you're walking on eggshells. Your boundaries are pushed and they act like you're overreacting, right? They make you feel guilty for saying no and needing space. And when you've gone through those red flags, a lot of times you don't know how to truly trust your intuition because a lot of times you're going against it to appease someone else. So, how do you trust your gut again, right? How do you consistently trust your inner self when there is turmoil? And so, one thing about our intuition, our inner gut, um, it speaks to us a lot of times really loudly when it's trying to help us to survive, and we ignore it because we really want a thing to work, but it gets louder and louder. If I'm being honest, it gets louder and we'll still ignore it until it hush, until it subsides, right? So one thing I want you to remember is that your intuition speaks through tension, unease, and exhaustion. If someone is consistently draining you of your energy source and your body is feeling drained, that is your intuition telling you that something isn't right here. If you are feeling anxiety when you're in a space with someone, every time they come around, something isn't right. So you have to listen to your body when it's feeling energies that are not conducive to your well being. So now that you've gone through all of this, how do you remove yourself from this toxic dynamic? How can you remove yourself? And I know it's a lot easier said than done, but when you are going over and over in your head about a situation and you're like, this is not where I need to be. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is walk away, but we don't want to walk away because we feel like we're giving up. Listen, you're not giving up. You're putting into action boundaries that you need in order to live, in order to survive, in order to consistently and continually be your best self. So, how to remove yourself from a toxic dynamic? Number one is acknowledge the truth. The truth will always set you free. Acknowledge that. Lie is a lie, but the truth will make you feel ease. It will give you a life source. Number two, stop making excuses for them. Focus on patterns, not apologies. You'll get all the apologies in the world, but the patterns remain the same, which keeps you in a loop, keeps you in a cycle. When you focus on a pattern, you will find yourself willing and seeing that, oh, you're playing games. I don't have time for this. Peace, right? So focus on patterns, not apologies. Number two is set boundaries and enforce them. Examples, if you're not comfortable with something, say that, hey, I'm not comfortable with that, and enforce it. No matter how mad they get, no matter if they decide to ghost you or stop talking to you, because they will. But this is you setting your boundaries. Number three is the gray rock method. Emotionally detach. It's necessary to remove yourself from these toxic patterns. And the way that you do that is to stay neutral with, okay, I hear you. If that's what you feel, that's your opinion. When you do that, when there's no back and forth, when there is no emotional attachment, you're just like, okay, well, if that's how you feel, if it works for me, it works for you. I mean, if it works for you, it works for me. That type of thing. Detach emotionally. Step four is to build a support system. A support system is always good and a healthy one. Because sometimes we'll run straight to the toxic people. So build a healthy support system. And number five, last but not least, exit with limited access to no contact, right? You have to sometimes go no contact if you can. And that might look like blocking and removing any type of access on all avenues in all areas. Now, if you can't completely go no contact, keep your contact limited. Focus on factual things. Don't interact with conversations outside of what the conversation is about. Example, if you have kids, keep it strictly on the kids, nothing else. Don't engage. Don't become their friend. Don't do that. Keep your access and contact limited, strictly on the things that need to be talked about, nothing outside of that. One thing I want you to remember through all of this is that you don't need to fix them. They're not for you to fix. This whole process is to build you up. It's so you can see what a bright star you are. So you can show yourself that you love yourself beyond what someone else has attempted to do to you, beyond what someone has um, inflicted onto you. You still love yourself, you're still showing up for you, and you're doing the necessary work to keep yourself protected, keep your heart intact, because you're allowed to protect you. You're allowed to protect your peace. And a lot of times when you are a victim of a toxic dynamic, it's easy for the victim to become the villain because a lot of people around you in the world that we live in, a lot of times the villain becomes the victim. And I don't know why that is. I'm not here to dissect that. But as I stated before, focusing on truth allows you to rest assured that you are doing the right thing for you. This isn't about anyone else. You can't fix them. And so if you have made it this far, put some yellow hearts in the comment section below. And also let me know in the comments below if you have experienced a toxic dynamic. If you're still in a toxic dynamic, if you have any questions, please ask them below and I will respond to them for you. Now, I want to know below what, if you are or if you were in a toxic dynamic, how did you break free? What helped you? Because of course we continue our conversations down in the comments because there are people reading it who also need that help in this moment right now. Before we get out of here, I want you to like, comment, and subscribe for more healing content. So until next time, I will see you on the next video.